Sure. Well, I think the theme that we've got going so far this morning is treating our housekeeping service partners fairly, and making sure that we talked about compensation. We talked about, the easing of the operational model. One thing that we do is that we have a 15-minute rule. Where our quality assurance inspectors, we have a team of quality assurance inspectors who ideally go in between the completion of the clean and the arrival of the guest. And as those quality assurance inspectors go in, if they find deficiencies in the housekeeping that they can correct in less than 15 minutes, then they are outfitted with their own cleaning kit, and they are tasked with going ahead and completing whatever touch-up needs to happen in order for the property to be guest ready. If the deficiencies they find are going to have a time period of greater than 15 minutes to complete, then that's when they would issue a callback task in Breezeway to bring the housekeeping service partner to send their cleaner back to correct those deficiencies themselves. One thing that we've done recently, we found that speaking of treating folks fairly, we've had a few storms and that sort of thing here along the Gulf front. A lot of our properties, most of our properties are beachfront. Most of them have the balconies with the large sliding glass doors. After a storm comes through, a lot of times it comes in from the south. We wind up with a lot of salt and a lot of sand on those sliding glass doors. And we were finding that we were having to call the housekeeping service partners back to correct that if the property had been sitting for a little while. And of course, in fairness, we were paying them to do that because we didn't expect them to come back and do storm cleanup for free. So we've outfitted our quality assurance inspectors now with squeegees, which I'm sure they're delighted about, but so that they can take a rag, put the water, get it on the sliding glass door and use that squeegee to correct that themselves. Takes a couple minutes, to do that. Saves us from having to bring the service partner back and then also having to pay them, to do that. So it's a win-win for both sides.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, just the whole concept of if we respect the work that they're doing, we oftentimes will see that same level of respect that housekeepers will show on the other side. And that 15-minute rule is fantastic. Instead of, hey, I found one hair, you need to return to the property, having folks actually coming in to do work and to help move the needle in the property unless there is such a need for that callback. That's fantastic. We've got some questions, and for those that are asking, if you use the Q&A section, we will work to answer those questions even live during this, and we'll make sure to answer, if not after the panel, as we go. But the Q&A section is the best place for that. Logan, you got a hot tip? Let's do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, part of I think being respectful to the cleaners is giving them all the information that they need to know ahead of time. So one of the things that we do with our cleaning company is if we know that the guest is checking in with a pet, we give the cleaners a heads up. Oftentimes when guests have a pet, it's going to take them longer to do the cleaning, right? Especially if you don't do laundry off-site. A lot of times we have hosts that the guests let the pets sleep in the bed, right? Which is super common. And unfortunately, if you're doing laundry on site, that takes a long time to get pet hair out of sheets. So giving the cleaners enough information about that clean, maybe how many guests were there, how long did they stay, did they have a pet, did they have kids, right? Like all of these things, let the cleaner know or give them a good idea of how long that clean is going to take. If it's going to take them longer than usual, they need to be aware of that because maybe they have 2 or 3 cleans that day. They can adjust their schedule accordingly. So always give your cleaners as much information as they need to know, and really arm them with information so they can go in and do that clean to the best of their ability.
I think that's so helpful as well when you think about the difference between a stay that's been maybe 2 months versus 2 days. If the cleaner is armed with that information, that is huge for them to know, and that knowledge is definitely power for sure.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
talk a little bit about callbacks, potentially even percentage tracking and such.
Oh, absolutely. That is one thing that we do, especially during the busier months. During snowbird season, the is fairly stagnant, so there's not a lot going on to really track. But once we get into spring break and the summer season, absolutely, we track the number of callbacks and the severity of the callbacks on a per clean basis with the housekeeping service partners. Their inventories, their portfolios are of varying sizes. So We have to do that on a scale basis
Right.
for the number of cleans for it to be fair. And we try to keep those, below a certain number. Most everybody right now stays in single digits percentage wise, less than 10% callbacks for the cleans that they do. And, if it's a callback for, a very minor thing, then we don't even count it. We do look at the callbacks as far as the severity of it, as to whether or not it's even going to count. And then, we provide that feedback to the housekeepers or the housekeeping service partners as a general rule on a monthly basis during the busier seasons, and they appreciate that. It's good feedback for them to let them know how their cleaners are doing, and then they can follow back up with their cleaners. And and we can a lot of times they'll come back and they'll ask us which particular properties are we talking about here, and then we can talk about that with them a little more in detail. And because a lot of times they have particular cleaning crews assigned to particular properties, and so they can track that themselves. And so it just kind of feeds on down the line, because, we have to keep in mind that everybody wants to do a good job. We have to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Our housekeeping service partners, their cleaners, they all want to provide a great service to us, and we want to provide great service to our guests. And so providing that feedback for them just is a good opportunity for them to evaluate their own operation and make improvements in that way.
Love it. And yeah, a lot of us are kind of developing that report card of sorts. And I like what you said, Brad, about making sure that that's percentage based, right? You don't want to have the team that's maybe a smaller team because they had one callback, have that be, it's percentage is the key. If a larger team has more callbacks, well, they might be doing a lot more homes. And so that's a good way to look at it from the percentage.